I like to think we were very fair when it came to covering the Biden administration because there was a lot of stuff in there, economically in particular, to give credit for. And I felt like he didn't get the credit he deserved, certainly not from the Democrats, certainly not from other media outlets. It was very, he would do something and like nobody would talk about it, right? And so I like to give that credit wherever I could. When he did do something good foreign policy-wise, I like to give credit, like pulling out of Afghanistan or nearly eliminating the drone war. I thought all that stuff was good. But I was also aggressive and when necessary. I would call out the fact that he's arming and funding the genocide in Gaza and clearly didn't give a fuck to reel in Netanyahu. Now, funny enough, in retrospect, compared to Trump, he was definitely better because he did a moratorium on the 2,000-pound bombs, but he also vetoed Netanyahu from attacking Iran when he was in there. Netanyahu wanted to do it back then, and he blocked it. But having said that, there's no excuse for arming and funding the, absolute destruction of the Palestinian people and killing innocents day in and day out. It's just absolutely disturbing and disgusting. But one of the things that he did that deserves the most credit would be, of course, the CHIPS Act, which is an attempt to bring back microchip manufacturing to the U.S., which is necessary because we get a lot of our microchips from Taiwan, and there's a question of whether China is going to try to take over Taiwan, and will that mess that up, etc. That was one thing. The other thing is the infrastructure bill, right? And what Trump did when he came into office is he cut off the funding for a lot of these Biden bills, cut off the funding for the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act and the infrastructure bill, and that was his way of putting his middle finger up to the Democrats, putting his middle finger up to Joe Biden. But he also was shooting himself in the dick when he did it because a lot of that stuff was going to help out the economy, right? Because of all these bills, all these laws, you were going to have 800,000 manufacturing jobs be created in this country, which would have been great for the people. Well, guess what? What Trump ended up doing is it was a mix of things. So he ended up freezing a lot of the spending that he didn't like personally. So some of that spending was like solar power stuff, wind power stuff, all the green and renewable technology jobs. Trump was like, let me just freeze the funding for this and seal. Now that violates the Impoundment Control Act. So Trump is breaking the law, but he is freezing a lot of the funding and not letting the Biden funding get out, right? But we just got this news recently. Guess what else he's doing? He unfroze some of the funding for the stuff that he likes. And now he's changing the signs to give himself credit for Biden's wins. So look at this. This is what the sign said before. Project funded by President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. And it says investing in America, Amtrak. Now it says Philadelphia rail yard modernization, President Donald J. Trump, rebuilding America's infrastructure. And then in smaller font it says funded by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. But he removed Biden's name. Biden supported this. Trump and the Republicans opposed it. So as Chris Mowry says here, Joe Biden passed the largest infrastructure bill since Eisenhower, and red states got the majority of the funding. Trump opposed it. Now Trump is changing all the signs to claim credit. What a shameless piece of shit. So the New York Times had a whole piece on this. It honestly doesn't get any lower than this, man. It really doesn't get any lower than this. Like, he's a liar, and he knows he's a liar. He's shameless, and he knows he's shameless. He is just a disgusting prick of a human being. He really is. Because again, at the same time, he's keeping some of the money flowing. He's taking credit for that particular money or for those particular projects, but he's cutting off other funding on stuff he doesn't like. Look, I'll say something controversial here, but I would rather have a situation where you unfreeze all the funding and Trump lies and takes credit, because at least then we would still objectively help the country out. We would create 800,000 manufacturing jobs. We would help revitalize manufacturing for real in this country. Trump says he's going to do it. He hasn't. Outsourced 200,000 jobs in his first term, already over 100,000 in his second term. It's probably going to get worse. But I'd rather you lie and take credit, but release all the funding, because there were a lot of good things Biden did, and unfortunately, Trump's reversing most of the good things. So, for example, Biden signed a $15 minimum wage for federal contractors and employees. That impacted about, I think, 400,000 workers. Trump got in there and got rid of that. That's great. So all these workers are going to get, a decrease in pay. Biden increased Social Security payments. He raised overtime pay. He did project labor agreements for construction workers. He had a pro-labor NLRB and CFPB and cracked down on wealthy tax cheats. So Trump is going to reverse all of that stuff. He already has reversed a lot of that stuff. But what Trump is doing is the even more shameless version of what we caught Nancy Mace doing the other week. Remember, we covered this. Nancy Mace was at, some ribbon cutting event, and one of the journalists asked her, like, hey, why are you at this thing when you voted against the bill that funded this project? And she basically melted down and called the person a radical left Democrat who's infiltrating her event or some shit. She had some, like, epic drama queen meltdown. But he's now doing the grandest version of this, the most shameless version of this, of let me put up these signs everywhere saying I deserve credit for the thing that I opposed and every Republican opposed. It's the tale as old as time, guys. This happened, I don't know how many of you remember this. I'm ancient, I'm fucking dating myself here, I'm sure. But I remember in Obama's first term, when he did his stimulus package because of the Great Recession, the Republicans did the same shit. They all voted against it, and then they took credit when their district got a project because of Obama's stimulus plan. In fact, if I remember correctly, Biden brought this up to Paul Ryan's face. Paul Ryan was the VP at the time for Mitt Romney, and Biden brought it up to Paul Ryan's face in the debate where he said, why did you take credit for this thing you voted against? And that's exactly right. That's what they do. They are so completely and utterly full of shit. And everybody needs to understand that about the Republican Party, is that they will actively destroy most of the good things done by Democrats, but if they let any of the good things happen and go through, they will then turn around and take credit for it, even though they voted against it and they didn't support it. It's like the border bill. Remember the Democrats came up with that border bill to try to pass it? It was bipartisan. It was way too conservative for my liking, but they came up with that, and it was Trump who came out and said, torpedo this thing because I don't want Biden to get a win. I want to be able to blame them for the border. And it's like, how do people not see through that? I mean, he really is. He's a cretin. He truly is a grotesque cretin. But there you have it. Now you got the signs going up all over the country giving Trump credit. Oh, the other thing, I should have pulled up this element. I didn't pull it up for you, but now we have ICE agents going around. They have golden pins of Donald Trump's profile on their, like, bulletproof vests. Is that normal? Is this normal, what we're seeing? The big banner that's hanging in front of a lot of government buildings of Trump's face, and it says America First. We went from 0 to 100. We went full tyrannical fascist asshole so fucking quickly that it'll make your head spin. I mean, it is truly amazing how fast we've devolved. It is legendary. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.